If you enjoy any of the Adult Swim shorts, such as
It takes a lot to make a stew.
or even
She has her cell phone, she's not calling us. I'm just calling.
Look.
then you would probably enjoy Buffet Infinity, which is essentially serving as a love letter to these shorts and a feature-length version of them. Buffet Infinity was directed by comedian Simon Glassman. It has the, appearance and the aesthetic of being cobbled together from, I don't know, what the time period would be, like VHS recorded commercials, basically, from the TV. So you have things like lawyers, you have restaurants, daycare centers for pets, what else is there? Like a supermarket, used car dealership, stuff like that. So it essentially takes all these bits and pieces, which are all, I think, recorded for the film. Probably none of them were actual commercials, and also some news spots, and turns them into a fairly coherent horror narrative. This is a lot of fun for me because while I was not of the Adult Swim childhood, I did discover them later and really enjoyed them, especially unedited footage of a bear, I think, is my favorite. But seeing like a longer form version, seeing a slightly different take on it, but still with that same kind of absurdist aesthetic is really a lot of fun. Glassman understands the sort of humor you might expect from these sorts of interactions and these collisions.
Oh, sweet.
Wow, how do we have so many in stock?
Don't worry about it. Worry about the space.
And he makes good use of them. So the story essentially winds up being about a couple of restaurants, their feud, and then the way that turns into a sort of Lovecraftian horror over the course of the film. And of course, who doesn't love Lovecraftian horror? It's the best. So the commercials wind up taking on essentially character arcs. The character of the lawyer, for example, he has his own series of commercials, which essentially revolves around litigation, around defamation, defending small businesses, things like that, taking digs at the city council. There is Jenny, who is the purveyor of sandwiches at her restaurant with her own secret sauce. She becomes a major player in the film. The titular Buffet Infinity is a competing restaurant which is taking over space, taking over some restaurants that we see in the film. There is a used car salesman who fights off Professor High Prices, I think. There is a woman who is the spokesperson for life insurance who has several life events pass before her in the course of the film. So these little snippets of commercials serve the role of characters and give character arcs. The news reports of things like sinkholes, of noises, of 911 calls, these serve as essentially exposition. So between the two combinations, you get the basic ingredients for what you'd expect from a film. You get movement in people and you get movement in story. The whole thing is roughed over with what you might expect of VHS quality commercials. The colors look a little bit distorted, things sound a little funky, it looks recognizable, maybe even comforting to people who grew up with that kind of media. So it gets the aesthetics right and it manages to make a coherent movie out of commercial sound bites. And I think it's really fun because given the slightly different approach to storytelling, the very fragmented and jumpy storytelling specifically, because we're not getting like one commercial for 3 minutes straight or anything. We're getting roughly a commercial's length in most cases, maybe even less if we're cutting around. So we have this non-traditional style, which I think makes for unpredictable storytelling as a positive. I think a real strength of the movie is the sense of humor. I won't give away some of the best running bits, but I think there is some great passive-aggressive commercializing between some parties. There is a good amount of kind of like, you might also bet it's good commercials. That's a difficult mood to capture intentionally. It's difficult to capture something like The Room with its earnest delivery, which is absolutely atrocious, right? So trying to capture that so bad it's good mood is mostly a success, I think, and that's especially turns up in like the used car stuff, in the pawn shop stuff. I think so much of the intrigue in the movie comes from just how they're going to piece things together with the pieces they have. Because I think, at least for me, going in, it was hard to conceptualize how they're going to turn series of commercials into something that runs together. But I think it's done exceptionally well. I will say, I think the best of the movie is in the front half. This is feature length, but I really don't think it has enough in it to feel like the full 100 minutes or so is really warranted. I think once the rivalry hits its peak, I think that is the best thing the movie has to offer. To me, the cosmic horror stuff is just not as strong, even if it has some moments. So it is listed like on Letterboxd as a comedy horror. I think the comedy is the strength. The horror is not bad. There are two scenes I have in my mind that I think are quite good, but I think once we move on from the main funny plot thread, there is just not quite as much there that I find as satisfying as some of that build up. But again, like the second half is not a bore. It is not like something to skip. It is not like this should have been 40 minutes instead of 100. I wish the eventual like horror build up and payoff was a little bit more concise, but I don't regret watching it. I think regardless, it's just such a fun concept. It's such fun execution. It's probably unlike anything else you're going to watch this year, and unless there are more, full feature-length versions of Adult Swim visions, you might not see another one like this again. So if you're interested in those Adult Swim shorts, if you're interested in horror or movies generally with unique deliveries, highly recommend it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm glad that movies like this are able to get out there, still be made. This isn't going to make numbers at the box office, but hopefully if you spread the word, then some people can see an interesting vision like this and be able to support an interesting artist like this.